Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of We Are Trans presents Trans Talks. I am so excited to bring you another lovely one of our trans faves. Please welcome professional wrestler and wonderful human being, Paola Gonzalez.
I try to be a wonderful human being. I try. At work sometimes I'm about to lose it, but like I work in retail, so anybody that works in retail knows how that goes. But hi.
Hey, so first thing I ask on this is, first, what are your pronouns? And with that, what words do you use to describe yourself? That can be identity-wise, but that can also be nerd or wrestler.
Sure. So my pronouns are she and her, and words that I use to describe myself is like circus freak, geek, nerd. Yeah, and that's about it pretty much. Mostly geek because I'm really geeky. Like I like science. I like RPG games, like video games and things like that, and comic books. I still collect comic books. They still do exist even after all these years. They still exist. And
Yeah.
and circus freak because I like the circus arts. I've been a fan of the circus arts since I was younger, and being able to showcase now like some of the things that I have learned through my through my life at local shows and even in wrestling. So yeah. I'm something that I'm proud of.
Yeah. You've already brought it up. We can plug it right now. Paola is going to be on a show I'm running tonight of all educational comedy. And Paola is going to be teaching juggling. So how'd you get into juggling?
So it's I'm glad that you asked that question because it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I got into it. There used to be a show on TV. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and in the local channel, the local a public channel, they used to do every afternoon. They will show a circus show, and they will have like jugglers and all that kind of stuff. Like back in when I was growing up, the internet was not as it is now. Right now, you can go on YouTube. If you want to learn how to juggle, you can tap "how to juggle," and you're going to find hundreds of video of people that will teach you how to juggle. But back then there was no place to learn, so I just felt interested in it, and I was trying to like, how could I figure this out, and I grabbed like 3 baseballs because that's what I had at the time. One of the sports that I was interested back then was baseball, and I had some of them, and I decided like, okay, so if I were to juggle this, how will I do it? Okay, I guess I have to toss one over here, then I have to toss this one, I have to toss this one, and I learned how to do the basic cascade pattern, and I was like, wow, is this it, or is there more that I could do with this? So I began practicing and discovering other tricks that were kind of like, I didn't know the name back then, but now that I was the internet, I know the name of the tricks, and I began. It became a life quest to learn how much more I can learn, how much more am I able to do, because like once you get to juggle the basic patterns, like, can I do 4, and then like, can I do other tricks that are more difficult? So you continue pushing yourself, so it becomes more of a life quest. And then along the way I discovered that there are other props that you can use for juggling, and like the Diabolos. The Diabolo is my favorite prop, and if nobody knows what is a Diabolo, I'm going to show one.
Okay.
This is a Diabolo. It looks almost like a yo-yo, pretty much, and you use a pair of sticks with a string, and pretty much like the beauty about this is like this starts spinning with a string, and it's not attached to the string, so you can toss it around and do a bunch of amazing tricks. And I watched a performance of this on a YouTube channel. The people that were performing. They are circus uh, famous circus artists, and it got me interested. Oh, that looks really cool. So I purchased one of those, and I began teaching myself how to do it. And that's one of my favorite props to use when I perform around here. And so I've got into other props that are used by people. I also like some people call it the devil stick. I call it a flower stick because it looks like
Okay.
a flower stick. And this one I made it myself. So like I have also got into crafting my own juggling props just because. So besides the fact that I know how to do a few tricks with this. So, um, and it's something again. It's like trying to like, oh, that looks really cool. I want to learn how to do it, and let's see what happens. Can I do it? And then it's like, oh, can I make my own juggling prop? So like things like that just like happen
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah. I am still at 3 tennis balls. Some like 2/3 of the time.
It takes time. It's not easy. Like a lot of people think like, oh, that's a talent. No, it's not a talent. It's a lot of practice. Like I remember when I started learning how to yoga, like I became kind of obsessed with it. Like with the Diabolo, I was like, I'm going to try it again. Oh no, I cannot do it. I'm going to try it again. Oh no, I'm going to do it. And at the time I was going to school part time, and like before I knew it, it was midnight, and I was still trying to learn how to juggle. But once I got it, like it's muscle memory.
Yeah.
You don't forget. Um, but yeah, it takes time. It can take time, and it's a lot of practice. It's
Mhm.
and the thing is like not to give up. That's the key to learn to learn most of the tricks and learn the basics. It's like not to give up. Take a deep breath, try it again. And hopefully eventually one can get an amazing pattern.
Cool. Cool. So the other thing, people might know you from if they're tuning in to see you, is from wrestling. What was your journey to that? How did you get into that?
So um, in Puerto Rico, I my parents never let me watch wrestling. So like I never got into wrestling because of my parents. My parents never didn't like wrestling. Wrestling in Puerto Rico was brutal. Like if you watch, if you type World Wrestling Council, and you watch some of the matches that they had back then, like it was really brutal. It was bloody, and my parents never like that. They never liked that because of the violence, and they didn't want me to get involved in those things because of that. Um, However, back in when I was in 11th grade, um, and knowing that I was bullied, um, I was kind of like, damn it, I wish I could do something about it. So I was flipping channels, and all of a sudden, I discovered at the time it was known as WWF, which is World Wrestling Federation. Now it's known as World Wrestling Entertainment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And there was The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan back then talking about eating your vitamins and say your prayers. And I was like, what is this thing? And I stayed watching the show late night while my parents were asleep. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. And I was kind of like, okay, this is something interesting. I think I would like to try to do it one day. Fast forward to the year 1999. I had just finished doing an internship in New Jersey in 1998, and 1998 was a big year in professional wrestling for two reasons. Because not only wrestling was hot back there, because you had WWE and you have WCW competing against each other, and you have what
Mhm.
they call the Monday Night Wars. But also in 1998, there was a documentary that was shown on TV um, called Professional Wrestling Secrets Exposed. And that, instead of making me not like wrestling anymore, that actually made it more interesting to me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. That seems to be more interesting now. So when I moved back, I returned back to Puerto Rico to finish my undergrad. I was driving to from one town to another. I live in Arecibo, and my school was in Mayagüez, so I had to drive all the way from Arecibo to Mayagüez to go to school. It was about an hour drive, and on the way to Mayagüez, I was like, "Oh, there's a wrestling show. Huh? I wonder if I can ask, and they would train me." And I stopped. I asked them, and they invited me to train. So I began training 2 days a week, traveling from Mayagüez to Isabela, which is another town in Puerto Rico, and there was about an hour drive. The days that I went to practice, I'll go there, practice, and then go back to school. And I did that for about 3 months before I got my first wrestling match. And before I even had my first wrestling match, I began working as a ring announcer. I used to be shy. Because I'm a geek, and part of being a geek is like I used to be highly introverted back then. So they needed a ring announcer, and someone's like, "Oh, you here, go and introduce the wrestler." I'm like, "What? I don't know how. Just improvise." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Um, so that's fine. Let's see what happens. So I lost my fear of like speaking in public, which actually helped me because then in school I had to do presentations, so it helped me control my anxiety of like speaking in public in front of people. So that's how I got started. And
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite wrestler?
My favorite all-time wrestler was The Undertaker.
Same.
It's there's something that was magical about The Undertaker. Like, and before I knew how wrestling was done, like to me, the Undertaker, I thought that he had actual superpowers. Oh my God, he's taking a beating. Oh, he got out the supernatural powers, and now he's going to defeat his opponent. So like, it was quite fantastic to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you're not the only one. Who are some other trans wrestlers people should be aware of?
So there's Nyla Rose. She's working for AEW. Roxy Matena, or Roxy the Broken Doll. She's in wrestling in Virginia, North Carolina. So she's somebody to watch. Mariah Moreno. She's she's from California. She's actually doing a show today in New Jersey. She's somebody to watch. She's also possibly the first one to come out as trans in the wrestling business. Nyla, she has the impact that she's in a big promotion, one of the biggest promotions, which is AEW. So she has more visibility by being there, and so those are the main ones that people should be aware of if they are not aware of them at this point.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
I'm not as well known because of I haven't gotten. I only stay working in New York and Vermont, and then I took time off, and so I haven't gotten. People probably don't even know who I am in some cases, but like it is what it is. It takes time, to get to a point where you are, where they know who you are,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for anyone watching, like I've watched videos from my like limited understanding of wrestling, and people I know. Paola's legit.
Yeah, I mean, like it's
like why aren't I a more known comedian? It's what is.
It is what it is. Honestly, I'm not going to get sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
If people know me, good. If they don't know me, okay. But like I'm proud of what I have done in wrestling. I'm happy with what I have done in wrestling, even before I transition and after I transition. Because I used to wrestle before I transitioned, and when I started, it's not like I transitioned and then I wrestled. I was wrestling before I even transitioned. To me, it was my escape. it was a way of coping because I was afraid of like coming out,
Yeah.
especially in my culture, where being trans is, or even being part of the LGBT community is not seen in a positive light. Um, you, I had to hide myself, and wrestling was my escape, or at least I can do something that I enjoy, and also you know keep my mind busy, and without having to worry about the other stuff. But eventually, I had to come out because it was I was doing more harm
Yeah.
by hiding myself than not hiding myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I
I
had
think that's.
to
Mhm.
make a decision,
Yeah.
and yeah, wrestling was accepting. People in wrestling were accepting at the time. And I remember a wrestling match in Vermont in 2008, right after um, I had been a year on hormones, and a year after I pretty much came out. So that was one of my first matches after I post transition, and it's on my YouTube channel, and it went okay, and it gave me hope that someday maybe things will get better for more people to be who they are in their wrestling business.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and now we're on to the fun questions. Not that this whole conversation hasn't been fun already, but I promised you some fun uh, questions. We'll get right into the one I ask everyone who I interview on this show. What is your comfort food, comfort music, and comfort movie?
Comfort food. Okay, I'm Puerto Rican, so the comfort food for me is like rice and beans and any type of meat. Like it can be chicken, it can be beef, it can even be tofu too because I like eating tofu. I don't discriminate. If it's edible and it's cooked properly and it tastes delicious, I will eat it. I don't care.
Yeah.
But in there is like rice and beans. Rice and beans are a staple in Latino cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely that's my comfort food. I know how to cook it myself, but sometimes I get lazy. I admit it. It can be a little bit hard work to cook rice and beans the way that I like it. So sometimes I just go and purchase it in one of the local businesses that are in the area. Um, as for music, that's a tough question because I like a lot of music. Like my taste of music range from like classical music all the way to heavy metal, power metal. Um, lately, I've been listening a lot of like rock from like the 70s, 80s, which is kind of like the glam rock era, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that might be my comfort music, but I also like Latin rock, like, and there are a bunch of like rock bands from like back in the early '90s that I ended up listening to, like Los Habanes and like Auténticos Decadentes,
Mm-hmm.
and even like Carlos Vives. He doesn't play rock. He plays like more of like um, what they call vallenato, which is Colombian music. But I like the way that that his music is composed because he uses an accordion and electric guitars, and like it's really fantastic. So those I include those in there, and then Shakira too, because Shakira is fantastic too. And what was it? The other
Comfort
question?
movie.
Comfort movie. Ah, action movies. Like I'm a big fan of like martial arts movies from like
Mm-hmm.
the uh, 70s. Uh, I love martial arts movies like and action movies. Those are my favorites, and superhero ones too. So yeah.
Cool. Cool. So we play D&D together. What is your D&D class? And you know what? I'll make this a two-part question. Like
My
your
D&D
favorite.
class will be I will be like a bard, barbarian, monk, and maybe one level of like rogue. Like I think I'm a multi-class character
Yeah.
class.
Yeah. What's your favorite class to play in a game?
Favorite class to play? Uh, I would say a monk. I like the monks. You know, like you don't need any weapon. I'm just going to like use my
Yeah.
fist. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I like the monks because of that. Before, in previous editions, used to be a fighter. I will always be playing a fighter
Hmm.
religiously. Um, but the first character class that I played in D&D, and this is back. I'm talking like years and years ago, when it was known as Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition. The first character that I made was a paladin, and I was like, okay, paladins, they seem cool, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, that character ended up dying in the most sadly way possible. My the party members that were in my group, they kill me because they didn't know that my character soul was possessed by a marionette, and they didn't know that I was trapped, so they burned the building down, and my character died because of that. And after that, I never play a paladin before anymore.
Yeah.
It was sad. It was in the world of Ravenloft, and like when you're a paladin in the world of Ravenloft, it's like the worst that can possibly be. Oh, I'm going to try to do detect evil. Okay, it doesn't work. Why is it not working? I don't know. Like maybe everything is evil. I don't know.
Yeah. What's your favorite D&D monster?
Oh my gosh. Hmm. That's a tough question in there. I think I will have to go with hmm. I don't have a a favorite D&D
That's
monster.
fine.
That's sad. I don't think I have one.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. And this, I've been waiting for this question. I feel like you're going to enjoy this question.
Okay.
You mentioned comic books.
Uh huh.
Uh, if you could make a superhero team, who would you put on your superhero team? And that can be across company.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's a really interesting question. I like that question. So I will make a superhero team of She-Hulk.
Nice.
Uh, we need somebody with like a lot of like brawn and super strength. That's important in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, I'll probably put the Flash, just because. Um, I would put the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in there.
Oh, do it.
Yes, just because it would be fantastic. Miles Morales, because we need the representation for Latinos. Nia Nal. If I could take the character from like the TV series of like
So
Supergirl,
good.
I'm put her in there. I'll put Nia Nal in there because she's trans, and again, we need representation in there.
Yeah.
And maybe Zorro. And I don't know people that don't know who Zorro is, but like Zorro was one of my first
Yeah.
favorite heroes because he had a sword.
Hmm.
So I will find a way to like put also Zorro in there, just because I think it would be fantastic. So yeah, that would be my superhero team.
Nice. No, that's. I like that team. That's everything I could have hoped for, for for that. Is there anything you wanted to make sure we talked about while I have you here?
I mean, there's a bunch we can talk about, like Puerto Rico and things like that. Like I can't
Talk
think of
about Puerto
questions like,
Rico.
oh, what you want to know about Puerto Rico?
um, what? I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but what was it like growing up in Puerto Rico? You talked about it a little bit, but
Um, it was tough, honestly. Like
mhm.
to an extent, was tough. One was because I was shy, and my culture favors people that are extroverted. Um, and I feel like pressure by my family to become extroverted in that sense.
Mhm.
Um, it was also tough because Puerto Rico tends to be like very uh, religious. It's a very like
Mhm.
I grew up in a Catholic family, so growing up in a Catholic family, it's one of the worst thing that can happen because like they will force you church into you pretty much, you know, um, and and that make it difficult for me to come out and accept myself. You know, you're hearing like 24/7 pretty much that you're going to go to hell. So it's like, why should I bother coming out? You know, um, I grew up in a what would be a middle class family. My dad used to work for a pharmaceutical, and my mom used to be a teacher. Eventually, she retired, but it was I had the privilege pretty much of going into private school,
Mhm.
um, and um, and that helped me when I went into college because I got I got a good education pretty much. Um, but it also showed me the side of like being in private school. It's not fun, you know. That doesn't mean that your life is going to be like all
Yeah.
good and all that kind of stuff. There are some bullies in there, you know.
Mhm.
So I went. Um, I had a. It was interesting too growing up in Puerto Rico, mostly because like now that I live in New York, you know, like the weather in Puerto Rico is still like completely different than New York.
Mhm.
Like down in and the culture too, you know, like down in Puerto Rico, we're more we're more warm towards people, like pretty
Okay.
much, you know, like when somebody across the street is doing a party, two things can happen. Either you may get invited on the spot, like, hey neighbor, do you want to come here and hang out, or you may end up getting extra food, invited to get some food and all that kind of stuff out of nowhere, you know. So it's very different from like here in New York. You know, people tend to be a little bit more to their own thing. You know, rarely I've seen somebody say me like, "Hey neighbor, come out for food" and all that kind of stuff. Like that doesn't happen at all in here. Plus, also that in Puerto Rico, like I don't have to deal with the snow. Winter up here is like so bad. Like I hate the winter up here in New York. Like if it was for me, I would totally love to cancel winter here in New York, but I can't. Um, I, I like the warm weather of Puerto Rico. I like the coast, being able to see the sea. Um, it's and the food. Mostly, what I miss is the food. You know. So yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned we talked about comfort food, but what is a favorite food that you had growing up in Puerto Rico? I know you mentioned rice and beans as a comfort food, but
I will say arroz con gandules, which is very typical in the Christmas season. Arroz con gandule y pernil, and pernil is like roasted butt of pork. You know, like they roast
Mhm.
it, they season it really well, and it's just super delicious. That is one of the biggest food that I miss it because around here there's few places that I can find it, and it's very complicated to make too. You know, to make a good pernil, it's very complicated. I cannot make that myself at all. I my cooking skills are good, but they are not that good that I feel confident making that. Um, so arroz con gandules in pernil, that's this one of the staples that I enjoy eating there. Like Christmas is like comes November, you know, because we in Puerto Rico we have uh, our Christmas lasts from like even before Christmas all the way up until like past January 6th, around that time. That Christmas is a long period in Puerto Rico. So since November, people start inviting you to like dinner and all that kind of stuff. And arroz con gandules pernil everywhere you go. And that is one of the foods that I enjoy the most from Puerto Rico. And I'm pretty sure that if went to visit my parents or visit Puerto Rico, I would probably go and the first thing that I would do is like, where can we get some arroz con gandules and pernil? That's probably going to happen. And then of course the frituras too, because the frituras are important. Frituras are like it's fried food, you know.
Mhm.
And in Puerto Rico they make amazing frituras like empanadillas and bacalaitos and all those things, alcapurrias. Those things are also super delicious. And like I remember going to Puerto Rico back in 2014, and the first thing that I told my dad is like, "Hey, can we go and get some alcapurrias?" so, so yeah, it's the diet goes down, gets pushed away whenever I go to Puerto Rico. Like there's some diet, forget about that. Yeah, no, it's impossible.
Yeah. Well, Paula, thank you so much for talking to me today. This was a delight. If you watching enjoyed this conversation, please consider tuning in tonight. The ticket link for a show a show I am running called Learn Something, Damn It, a night of educational comedy. Paula is on that. So many wonderful performers are on that. That ticket link is in the comments of this video, as well as Paola's Twitter. Follow her. Uh, and We Are Trans, besides running this weekly show, has monthly shows of all trans performers with a different theme every month. This month, in 2 weeks, is the Not Stand Up show. That is all trans comedians. They happen to all be from New York City this month, but it's all trans comedians in the sketch, improv, and character scene. Um, I hope to see you at both of those shows. And the next episode of this show, we're taking next week off. And then the 24th, we will have a conversation with the wonderful comedian Dahlia Bell. So that's what we have in store for you with We Are Trans and Trans Talks. Paola, again, thank you so much. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you for having me, and it was a lot of fun to answer the questions. Yeah, it was.
Okay. Well, until next time, goodbye, everybody.